Together, we are working to identify, empower, and encourage the next generation of bold and principled leaders. I am so honored this afternoon to welcome President Bush and Mrs. Bush back to the Presidential Center, along with my boss, President Clinton. While today we celebrate the graduation of the 2018 Presidential Leadership Scholars, we know today is really just a starting point. We follow the important work our scholars continue to do after they complete the program, like Marta Colon, who mobilized a group of fellow scholars in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, or Megan Ogilvy, who is helping disabled veterans transition into the workforce at her dog tag bakery, or Hollis Meminger, who is teaching filmmaking to high school students in underserved communities. Your challenge as the newest class of scholars is to honor your personal experience and those who have come before you by applying the lessons learned in this program to the communities that you serve. You are already very accomplished, or you obviously wouldn't be here, but you can, and I sincerely believe will, do more. Today, you are not just crossing the finish line, you are beginning a journey, and we can't wait to see where it will take you. One of the great pleasures of being part of this program has been working with the staff of the other presidential centers. We consider them to be terrific colleagues, but perhaps most importantly, truly dear friends. I am now delighted to introduce one of those wonderful friends, Holly Kuzmich, the Executive Director of the Bush Institute. Holly.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you to the team at the Clinton Foundation for hosting us this week. We're so proud of this partnership that is Presidential Leadership Scholars. These graduates represent the best of our country, not only in their personal and professional accomplishments, but in the values with which they lead and their commitment to making their communities and our country live up to its full potential. Nearly 5 years ago, we began discussing the idea of a leadership experience that would build on the assets and resources of the 4 presidential centers that are part of this program and explore the consequential periods of time when these 4 presidents served in office. That's what led us to create Presidential Leadership Scholars. As Stephanie mentioned, we have 4 partners in the program. I want to welcome the leadership from those 4 centers that are here today. First, my boss, Ken Hirsch, the president and CEO of the Bush Center, and our board member, Gene Phillips, from the George W. Bush Presidential Center. From the Clinton Foundation, we've got Bruce Lindsay, who's the counselor to President Clinton and on the board, Kevin Thurm, the CEO of the Clinton Foundation, Terry Garner, the director of the Clinton Library, and Skip Rutherford, the dean of the Clinton School of Public Service. From the LBJ Foundation, we've got Mark Updegrove, the president and CEO there. David Jones could not be with us from the George H.W. Bush Foundation, but I know he sends his regards to you all. And 2 of our members of the Presidential Leadership Scholars Advisory Committee, Alexis Herman and Larry Temple. The goal we outlined for the program was to develop and hone the leadership skills of a group of highly motivated individuals. And the individuals in this year's class are as motivated and values-driven as you can get. To this year's class, you've learned from the presidents, not just as leaders who've held the highest office in our land, but as people. You've sharpened your leadership skills by learning from those who served in their administrations. You've made progress in your personal leadership projects in your communities. And importantly, you've established close and lasting relationships with your fellow scholars, serving as friends, mentors, and partners to each other. And we hope that lasts well into the future. And each year, we've aimed to build a diverse class that represents the different backgrounds, experiences, and viewpoints that are found in our country today. You've introduced each other to new ways of thinking, and you've challenged each other. And you've done it with respect and a keen interest in understanding others' points of view. You've brought out the best in each other. It seems like just yesterday that we first launched this program, and now we welcome this year's graduates into an alumni network that is 240 people strong. Our graduates have learned from the program and are going on to do great things, and we're proud of the results we've had to date. Let me share some of those with you. Our leaders are inspired to do more. 96% of them have said they have experienced significant growth in their sense of purpose and role, with nearly all indicating the program had a significant impact on that growth. They're focused on tackling important issues in our communities, like substance abuse, criminal justice reform, education, and on, through their personal leadership projects. 86% of them have made progress in the projects during their time in the program from the past 3 classes. And graduates are also inspired to think differently about their careers. 68% have taken on new responsibilities or a role change since PLS, and you're about to meet one of our graduates who experienced just that phenomenon. But even more important than all of those metrics is the very personal change that we see in all of the graduates of this program. Every single scholar in this program exemplifies the qualities we seek in today's society: humility, courage, optimism, openness, civic-mindedness, and an orientation to action. We're proud to know each and every one of you. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the generous supporters who've made this program possible. They include the Moody Foundation, the Caruth Foundation, the Miles Foundation, the Harold McGraw Jr. Family Foundation, Bank of America, David Rubenstein. Without all of their support, this program would not be possible. To our scholars, congratulations. Thank you for the work you've put in this program. We're inspired by each of you, and on behalf of the 4 presidential centers, thank you for your good work. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we're also recruiting for our class of 2019 right now. So for anyone who's interested, I'd encourage you to visit presidentialleadershipscholars.org to find out more. Applications are due August 31st. We hope all of our graduates will help us recruit another class of phenomenal scholars. So now we want to hear from one of our graduates, Byron Sanders from the class of 2017. He's going to share his own experience in the program, so please join me in welcoming him.
Good afternoon. Oh, that was good. You know, it was just last year I remember being right there. At the time, I was working at one of the most prominent financial institutions in the world with a fantastic team. Having not long ago been promoted to a new role that was just right, I had a plan, and it was working. Then the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program. Hearing from President Bush in his own words about the decisions he had to make in the minutes during the 9/11 attacks, moments I remember watching live my freshman year in college, it was surreal. Particularly stirring was the module that we did in Austin, contextualizing President Lyndon Johnson's era from the mouth of his press secretary, Bill Moyers, hearing the recordings of his actual phone calls with Martin Luther King Jr. and Thurgood Marshall. It moved me to my soul. The tableaus of leadership in such perilous times forced me to rethink my proximity to the work of creating a more just and equitable society today. Something inside me began to change. The tipping point came in an experience at dinner after our graduation ceremony. I sat next to President Clinton. It was at once exhilarating, humbling, fascinating. As I broke bread with and talked with a man who not long ago shouldered the weight of the world on his shoulders, I was moved not just by his stories. They were really good and really long. And really good. But I was also moved by the reality that he was just a man. I know this shouldn't have been an epiphany, but in a way, it was a capstone moment. I spent 6 blessed months surrounded by a class of the most talented, selfless servants I've ever known. These are the kind of people you see featured for international acts of valor, reshaping the landscape of healthcare, casting a new normal in our expectations of a justice system. They are indeed superstars. But they're superstars who joked, who cried, who gushed over newborns, who questioned their own worthiness. That dinner with President Clinton for me was a clearing among the pomp and pageantry of the night. It crystallized my most valuable lesson from the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program. The notion that great acts of service, heights summited, words written in the pages of history are written by people, regular people. People like Bill, like George, like me, like you. People. So if that normalcy is a hallmark of both the men who also move nations, then the covariant implications are sharp. We all are required to push our aspirations to the furthest limit, to find our purpose for which God's granted breath, then chase it with all the fervor we can muster. We don't have a right to not dream. It's the Eternal's language that speaks the divine assignment. We have a duty to answer that call and to stretch the limits of our life in the service of others, normal people empowered by supernatural determinacy. Because of this program's charge, I went back to Dallas with a purpose-driven burr nestled in my core. I knew that change was imminent. I let go of my plan, and I opened myself to the possibilities for the work closest to my heart. This past December, I accepted the offer to serve as the president and CEO of Big Thought. It's a 30-year organization that attacks the opportunity gap for youth by unleashing their creativity and strengthening social and emotional well-being, empowering them for the 21st century world. Our work with the city of Dallas, Dallas Independent School District, and over 500 partners enriches the lives of over 150,000 students in Dallas each year. This is the work for which I was born, wrapped in the certainty of a personal mission statement that I wrote over 10 years ago. To love my God with all my heart and soul, to be the husband, father, son, and brother according to what pleases him, and to work diligently and daily in my most sincere efforts to pursue my appointed purpose with honor, character, bravery, and love. Because of the vision that President Bush, President Clinton had in building the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program, I had an opportunity to rediscover a valuable truth. Class of 2018, our collective destiny lives in the chords of common people finding an uncommon reason to live. And there's some person you've yet to meet whose life depends on you finding it. So the good thing is, in the Presidential Leadership Scholars Alumni, there's not a better brand of sisters and brothers for the quest. So congratulations, class of 2018, and welcome to the family. And it is now my great honor to introduce the 42nd and 43rd Presidents of the United States, President George W. Bush and President Bill Clinton.
All right.
Yeah. Damn.
Well, good afternoon again, everyone, and thank you so much.
Welcome to the anticlimax.
Thank you again for joining us for today. What I'm pretty sure will be a very lively conversation, so I'm just going to jump right in. You know, a hallmark of this program is for the scholars to learn directly from former presidents and their teams. And I know personally that for you all, that is the most impactful part of this program, is having the opportunity to interact with the scholars when they come to your respective presidential scholars. So really, to help make this more of a conversation today between you and the scholars, not just me talking, we asked the scholars to submit questions ahead of time. And there were lots and lots and lots of questions. So I'm going to try to get through as many of them as possible today, but I'm going to start with the first question, and then we'll go directly to the scholars. So, has been mentioned, 5 years ago, approximately 5 years ago, you all came up with this fabulous idea and announced this program in Washington, D.C. at the museum. And a lot has happened in our country and in our world since that time. So if you could both briefly share your thoughts about the importance, what you think the importance of this program is today and the impact it can really make. I'm going to ask President Clinton for you to start, and then President Bush as well.
Well, basically are in a period of time where everybody was happy after the Cold War. The Cold War was over. We didn't have to be all divided again, and now we're all divided again. And where people think our differences are more important than what we have in common. And some of this is inevitable. The way the economy has grown isn't fair and equal to everybody. And when you have a whole lot of social change at once and a lot of people feel empowered, other people feel displaced, there are a lot of answers to all this. But in the end, we can't repeal the fact that we're growing more interdependent for reasons I think are self-evident. And I think the temptation when you're wary and you're negative feeling is to turn people from 3 dimensions into 2-dimensional cartoons, which is why your speech was so important. I used to tell people all the time when they'd cuss somebody that was cussing me, I said, you know, if you scratch most people long enough, there's a person hiding in there somewhere, and you got to go find it. So I think that the whole future of the next 50 years is going to be determined probably in the next 4 or 5 by whether we choose to find a way to get along and work together. And I think I give George a lot of credit for this program, but I didn't know that it would fill such a deep need and that historically it would turn out to be as important as I believe it is. For that reason, for almost personal reasons that turn into politics, turn into economics, turn into social change.
Thank you. President
Yeah, so I think I can think of 3 entities that are going to be positively affected. First, the people who join the program. You've learned to respect somebody else's opinion, and hopefully the program has broadened your horizons. Secondly, it helps the presidential libraries. You know, otherwise we'd be kind of atrophy, you know, like who wants to go to the James K. Polk Museum? But it means we're fulfilling we're doing our duty as former presidents to try to leave behind a better place. And thirdly, this helps our country because I know full well that the folks that we're going to honor today and have in the past 3 classes are going to be leaders for the country in all kinds of ways, and America will be better for it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So our first scholar's question is going to come from Stephen Yanes. Stephen.
Hola.
Hello, sir. My name is Stephen Yanes. I'm from the state of New Jersey, and I'm a lawyer in private practice at the law firm of Lowenstein Sandler. President Bush, I'm the son of Cuban immigrants, and I had the honor to serve in political campaigns and in administrations. My interest has always been in outreach and engagement to our Hispanic community. In fact, my leadership project is focused on helping train immigrants to pass the American citizenship exam. Sir, what can we do to ensure that those like me, Hispanics, sons and daughters of immigrants, have an opportunity not only for engagement, but for leadership in political parties and in political service?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for the project, for starters. One of the things I'm sure you're going to be teaching is that with citizenship comes the responsibility to participate. So I appreciate very much your encouraging people to participate. In terms of leadership, I would suggest that you tell people that you're going to have to work hard to earn it. Like everybody wants to be the campaign manager, you know, and but politics requires a lot of effort. Now, which leads to a broader question, and that is the topic of immigration in general. I'm disturbed by the debate that's taking place because I think it undermines the goodness of America. I think it doesn't recognize the valuable contributions that immigrants make to our society, and it obscures the fact that the rhetoric does that the system is broken and needs to be fixed. So on the one hand, I appreciate you educating people about the responsibilities of being a good citizen. On the other hand, you're going to need some help from the government to get this thing fixed once and for all. And so I appreciate you, Yanis. Mucho gusto. See?
Our next scholar question will come from Mary Redding.
Hi.
Hi, Mary.
My name is Mary Redding. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm a civil servant and an attorney. In continuation of my leadership project, I am currently working on a congressional commission that will develop recommendations to increase Americans' participation in national, public, and military service, as well as a review of the military selective service process. President Clinton, you know the value of service firsthand. How can the United States increase participation in national, public, and military service, especially of individuals with skills critical to address national security and other public service needs of this nation?
Well, I think, first of all, to go back to what the first thing that was said about your involvement in reviewing the current military service laws, the military leadership likes the all-volunteer force, I think. And I believe its size will go up and down depending on what the national security needs are. But I believe there are lots of other national security needs that will become more important. I think we should have, one of the reasons I don't want to cut back on immigrants very much is that we need more people who have language skills, who can relate in other ways, and that can go into diplomatic service, can go into the Peace Corps, can go into the national security apparatus in non-military ways. And I would like to see AmeriCorps expanded, consistent with what our budget constraints are. And then I think we need to do things that will try to promote organizations like this in every community in America. One of the things that I was going to save this to the end, but George and I have talked about how much you all seem to like this and feel benefited from it, and how nuts it is that people don't talk to each other if they have political disagreements. I always get a laugh every year when I said, look at us, we're less racist, sexist, and homophobic than we used to be. Our only remaining bigotry is, please don't make me be around anybody who disagrees with me. And so I would like to solicit all of your ideas about what we could do to amplify the impact of this program in every state and every community in this country. Because I think doing some public service in an interdependent world is a part of the definition of citizenship. I didn't exactly think that when I was young, like in high school. You know, you're just supposed to vote, be informed, pay your taxes, and then do your roles right. Take care of your family, take care of your work, that kind of stuff. Service is really important now, because otherwise we're just going to drift apart more and more and more, and we can't afford it. So I solicit your suggestions about what we can do to increase that.
Thank you, Mary. So our next question is for both of you from Asha Vorghese. Asha.
Hi, my name is Asha Varghese. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I lead global health at the GE Foundation. President Clinton and President Bush, both of you have implemented and continue to stay engaged in remarkable foreign aid programs like PEPFAR and work at global health at each of your foundation that have impacted generations in developing countries. What do you think the role and responsibilities of the United States government should be in international development? And is there a place for the private enterprise in that process? Thank you.
Well, let me start with this. One of the lessons of 9/11 is the human condition elsewhere matters to the security of our country. And therefore, the idea of helping others alleviate disease and poverty and hunger is in our national interest. Obviously, the United States can't solve every problem, but we can set priorities. And one such priority during my administration was a pandemic destroying an entire generation of people on the continent of Africa. My view was, if America can't stand, isn't willing to stand for the protection of innocent life, what are we all about? And so I view the role of the United States as very important. The truth of the matter is the way the world is today, that if the U.S. takes the lead, others tend to follow. People say, well, we don't have enough money. Well, let me just tell you, on PEPFAR, 1/2% of the entire budget of the government goes to help save over 21 million lives. And so I think private enterprise does have a role in that it's important to set clear goals and to measure to determine whether or not those goals are being met. And so I would hope that our government would go through and analyze the effectiveness of programs and robustly fund those that work and not robustly fund those that don't work.
First, I think that, I love PEPFAR. And, you know, I started this health access initiative that has been honored to work with PEPFAR, and it was before we were just out raising money to lower the price of AIDS drugs and to increase the availability of health care. So I like that. When I look for ways that we can empower people to take control of their own destiny. So I was proud of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act and the preferences we give to our Caribbean neighbors to grow things and sell them to us or produce things. And I like the Millennium Debt Relief Initiative, which we did. And then afterward, President Bush's administration developed these Millennium Challenge grants so that we could say, okay, we'll forgive your debt, but you got to put the money into develop healthcare or education with no corruption. And we're going to monitor this. We're trying to empower people here. I think we should do more of that. I also think we should simply do more. The world population is growing. Africa has the largest amount of arable land untilled in the world, but there's a lot of it elsewhere too. There are hundreds of thousands of small farmers in about 3 programs in Africa, one of which our foundation runs, that have proved they can double, triple, even quadruple their output, and always double or triple their income with the kinds of things we did in America in the Great Depression and afterward. Just getting good seed, good fertilizer, good cooperative stuff. We should be funding that kind of stuff. And you know, the president's made a big issue of our NATO allies not paying 2% of their GDP in military. The world community committed years ago to spend 0.7% of GDP on development aid. And so far, only Norway and the UAE are above that number. So we get a good return on this. I mean, he can tell you how many friends America has just because of PEPFAR. And I could give you lots of other examples. We're never going to be, as long as we're strong, and people will always disagree with this or that foreign policy decision we make, but they need to know we're on their side. So that's my advice. I think we should invest money. And I think the one big problem we've got that all of you could correct is that the average person thinks we spend 15 to 25% of the federal budget on foreign assistance, and it's more like 1% of the budget and well under 1% of GDP. So if you could just, if everybody in America knew the facts, it'd be a lot easier to do good.
Thank you. Our next.
One last
yes,
thing.
Yes.
Well, just real brief. You don't want to give the future to the countries that are great at aggregating capital because they're not democracies. China just built a railroad across the eastern half of Africa. It's fine. I'm glad for them to do it. I'm proud they did it. But do you really want to say, we're going to make everybody have a big military, but we're not going to help anybody build their own future and change their own lives? I don't think so. So I think you should think about that.
All right. Thank you both. Our next scholar question is from Tina Tran.
Hi, my name is Tina Tran. I live in San Francisco and I work in technology in Silicon Valley. America is known as the land of opportunity, but as the quality of public schools decline in areas around our country, there is a feeling that families are losing equal access to educational opportunity. In my leadership project, I'm exploring how we can use technology to bring quality educational content to remote areas. President Bush, what are some other things we can do to tackle the problem of education inequity that arises for poor families, which makes it hard for the next generation to have a chance at a better life? Thank you.
Yeah, Tina, thanks for doing this. My advice for your project and anybody else who wants to reform parts of the public education system that aren't working is insist upon accountability. Because I think you'll find that a lot of educators are not only well motivated and smart, but they think that they're pretty much achieving the objective that we expect. And in order to get, therefore, reform efforts tend to be thwarted. And one way to satisfy your desire is to insist upon measurement, to prove that something needs to change. Otherwise, certain kids will be left behind. You know, there needs to be an attitude in our society in which we believe every child can learn. In other words, the expectations have got to be high for every child, regardless of how they were raised. Otherwise, the system will essentially give up on them. And so, you know, there's a lot of efforts that need to be made. You just heard from Byron, who, quite articulate, I might add, particularly for a Texan. And look, I'm just speaking from personal experience. But there's a lot of programs who are addressing this very problem you're talking about. A lot of kids, you know, in many cases just don't have a shot, you know, and there needs to be love. Government isn't very good at love, but organizations like Byron's are full of loving people. And so my answer to your question is it's going to take a lot of grassroots efforts, but it's also going to require the willingness of our society to hold people to account, to say, let's measure whether you can read at a certain grade level. And if you can't, change so you can. I happen to believe accountability in reading is the new civil right. And in order to justify change, there has to be measurement. I don't know if I dodged your question well or not, but.
Our next scholar question is coming from Megan Sims.
Oh, yeah.
Here she comes. She's tough.
Hey, wait a minute, just so you know.
Yeah.
She and I are mountain biking buddies. Waco, Texas. I live in Crawford.
I know where you live.
Hi, I'm Megan Sims. I am from
Before you
Waco,
go,
Texas.
by the way, before you start, I'm wondering why you missed my 72nd birthday ride on July the 6th.
I wasn't
Working?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Good answer, Megan.
That's your story, and you're sticking to it, right?
Yes, that's my story. Yes, sir. So I'm Megan Sims. I am from Waco, Texas, where
Yes.
I've lived since I was 3 weeks old. I am a gardener, and I own a company called Garden Craft. My PLS leadership project is focused on increasing the number of people who can grow their own healthy food. President Clinton, how do you suggest that we as a nation address rising rates of preventable diseases that are linked to unhealthy diet and sedentary lifestyle, especially considering the financial toll these diseases take on our healthcare system and the physical toll they take on our lives? Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for caring about it. I think the most important thing we can do is to help kids get good nutrition, decent exercise in school and out of school. I do a lot of work on that. There are a lot of programs all across the country to do it. The Agriculture Department has tried to, have more sensible food standards for the school lunch program, for example, and the school breakfast program. I think you can do all that, but I also think there needs to be much more support than there is. Probably would have to come from state and local levels for things like the urban garden movement. There are several communities in our country where people really support each other in starting gardens and open green spaces and give the fresh food to the kids. I think that's important. we started my granddaughter planting a garden when she was 3. And we eat all summer long out of our garden. And I think, but people can, this is not all that expensive, but it's hard in urban areas. I think that's important. So I think getting people who provide fast food to change the nutritional standards is important. McDonald's has done a pretty good job of that lately. They're doing better. And you have to do it in a way that enables them to make money, and it gives a reasonable period of transition. But I think changing the diet and the exercise habits and giving people more opportunity to grow and consume their own food is one of the most important health objectives we could have in this country. You know, the average human body, we now know from research, is built to last about 120 years.
No.
So that
You and I got 30 more years.
God, I hope so.
I hope not.
Well, I hope you live to be 100 anyway. But that means, except for those who die from crimes, natural disasters, accidents, you got it, or environmentally caused cancers, we all who live to be less than 100 play some role in our own undoing. And I think teaching children about this and giving them a chance to be a part of this is really important. I went to a school called the Gateway School in St. Louis last year. They were part of our program, our schools we work with, and seeing these kids, raise their own food. It also brought the children together across income lines and racial lines and ability lines. They have a big special needs population in this school because they got a lot of physical space. And seeing them work together in the garden and know what the foods were and what they were eating and how they were raised, these things are important. And this could become a big national movement if we got involved in it. And that's, for whatever it's worth, my best idea.
Yeah. Just don't grow any beets. Yeah, beets. I don't like beets. By the way, speaking about older Americans, I can't thank you enough for going to visit my dad. It was damn thoughtful of you to say hello to old 41.
Speaking of older Americans, we are now in a 6-week period that occurs every year.
Love this.
Only 6 weeks when he's older than I am. And so I genuflect and bow and show undue respect.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I can't wait till August 19th so I can quit this ridiculous behavior.
Very good.
The next series of questions were submitted by a number of scholars. So I'm going to ask some of those, and either one of you can feel free to answer, or you can both respond as well. So reflecting all that you both have accomplished at this point in your lives, can you share with us what you think the single most important piece of advice that you would give our scholars as they continue their leadership journey?
Paint often. What? Paint often.
Paint often.
So my advice is dare to be willing to take risk and work hard. That's what I meant by paint often. So like I took a risk to be a painter, right? And I paint all the time. And but the risk adverse aren't willing to dream big. And don't fear failure, I guess is the way to put it.
I think, first, I have made every one of my high school reunions except one, when I had to send the troops into battle in Kosovo in 1999.
Where in the hell did you go to high school?
Hot Springs High School.
There you go. Yeah.
50 miles from here.
Yeah.
Public school student, had 4 years of Latin. Anyway, I made all these reunions. And I've kept up with a lot of my classmates. When I come home, I try to see at least 3 of them every time I come home, that we've stayed in touch with each other all our lives. The ones who are disappointed are not the ones who have failed. The ones who are disappointed are the ones that didn't try to do what they wanted to do. Just what he said. It doesn't take long to live a life. And every day is a gift. And if you fail, you get to start again. That's the way that's the deal. You are among the people born maybe since World War II in America have largely had more options than any group of people ever in human history to choose what they did with their waking hours. That's what you do when you go to college. You decide you're going to major in X instead of Y. You think about it. Most people never had that choice. When you have that choice, you should take it. And most people are happiest doing what they're best at or what they think will be the best for people at large, which is the speech you just gave us. You have a choice. If you'd been born 500 years ago, you would no more have that choice than a man on the moon. If you'd been born 100 years ago, you probably wouldn't have had that choice. Mm-hmm. So don't pass it up. It's the basic things are the most important things. You have that choice. Every one of you made all these choices. That's how you got selected for this class. And don't lose your nerve. And if you get beat up along the way, just consider it a learning experience and take a deep breath.
Thank you. So many of our scholars are in the process of building teams or leading teams, and because of this program, they've had the opportunity to meet with a number of leaders of your teams and your administrations, people like Secretary Alexis Herman, Larry Temple from the LBJ Foundation. Could you share with us, because you both have experiences building teams as governor and as president, what are some of the main characteristics that you look for when you were building your teams?
Me?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so it starts with knowing what you don't know and finding people who do know what you don't know and creating an environment in which they're willing to tell you what you don't know. I was looking for people who didn't think their job was to make me look good all the time. I was looking for people who were willing to serve something greater than themselves. I was looking for people who could laugh and not take themselves so serious, who would be unwilling to take themselves so seriously they couldn't find humor in life. I was looking for hard workers. I was looking for people who had an important set of values that honored their families. That's the kind of people I was looking for. Sometimes missed, by the way.
I think you have to ask yourself, first of all, it depends on what you're picking people for. I largely agree with what George just said. I think when I became governor and when I became president, I tried to literally make a list. What am I good at? What am I not so good at? What am I trying to do? And if you measure what you're trying to do against a list you just made about what you're good at and what you're not so good at, it's obvious what you need to be looking for. And then, of course, there are these jobs that you have to fill. If you're putting a team together, you have to find somebody that knows that. But it's more important than just knowing things or skills or even science. You have to, then there has to be an attitude that we're all going to work together. We're all in this together. And I agree with him that nobody, I had an unusually young staff when I first took office as president. Stephanie was 16. And I said, look, you need to know nobody will ever come in this office and tell me something I don't want to hear but I need to hear and get in trouble for doing it. Nobody will ever be fired, demoted, reassigned, iced out, nothing. But if you ever come in here and tell me what you think I want to hear, we might as well fire you all and just run the place with computers. Develop an algorithm for what the options are and let the computer decide. The thing that makes human decision-making work is interaction and teamwork and spirit. And as long as you're committed to the goal, then you should be free to disagree. I mean, I remember when Bob Rubin became my national economic advisor, people were criticizing Mac McClarty because we talked about too many details of the budget and had too many arguments in Washington. He said, all I know is this is the best decision-making process I've ever been in, because we're dealing with a lot of new questions, end of the Cold War, new information economy, and we need to be debating every single one of them. And we need to get a wide array of opinion. Then, I'm sure he would agree with this, somebody has to decide. He once said he was a decider-in-chief, and people made fun of him, but that's
They
the
did?
truth.
I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah. But it's the truth. That's what you do. Somebody's got to make the call. Now, after the call, and I told all this, I said, after the call, if you can't live with the decision I made, don't go around leaking and stuff like that. The honorable thing to do is to resign. If you do, I will praise you. And I will call people and recommend you for jobs. And I had two people resign when I signed the welfare reform law. And I publicly praised them. And I said, we're going to see whether they were right or I am. But that's what you got to do. There are no perfect people, no perfect processes, no perfect answers. But diversity of groups, diverse groups make better decisions than homogenous ones or blank slates or people that think they're supposed to please whoever they're coming in to see. That's not what you're hired to do. You're hired to contribute.
That's right, and both of you had some of the most diverse administrations in presidential history, so thank you for that. So several of our scholars in the 4 classes, and among these classes, some are considering running for office. You all both have some deep experience there. So what would be your number one piece of advice that you would share with some of our scholars that are either currently or thinking of seeking public office?
Ask people to vote for you. You'd be amazed how many people don't actually meet people and ask for their vote. Ask people to vote for you and give them a reason that has to do with their lives and their hopes. We've got to get back to other-directed politics. All this sort of character assassination stuff makes me want to throw up. Politics is about what happens to other people. And that transgender woman that got elected to the state legislature in Virginia, her speech was, please don't vote against me because I'm transgender. Please don't vote for me because I'm transgender. Vote for me because you can't get to work on time because our congestion's so bad. And the other guy's been there 20 years. Vote for me and I'll get you to work on time, get you home in time to have dinner with your kids. And it was the best short example of what politics ought to be about. When he defeated Ann Richards for governor, Ann Richards has been a friend of mine since the 70s. And I saw his campaign unfold. He had an agenda, and it was about other people and their problems. Some of it I agreed with, some of it I didn't. That's the point. That wasn't the point. The point was, he said, hire me and I will do X, Y, and Z. So first, ask for the job, and second, give them reasons.
Yeah, like when you beat my old man.
He forgave me a long time before George did.
First of all, I'm pleased people want to run for office given the current state of affairs in politics. You know, there's just too much bitterness, and it's very discouraging to me because our system really is only as good as the willingness of good people to run. And so for those of you considering, I thank you. Secondly, Bill gave really good advice about how to get a vote. Thirdly, it is an exciting life. I mean, it is like really fulfilling. It's tough. It is arduous. It is intellectually stimulating. It is a heck of a challenge, and it's worth it in the end because you're contributing to the country. And so for those of you who are thinking about it, go for it. Now, you know, be careful where you run. So like, I ran, we both lost, right, for Congress? You lost, so did I. Anyway, huh? Yeah, thank God. As the guy who beat me said, if it wasn't for me, he'd still be on the agricultural committee. Hence. And anyway, you know, you got to be wise about where you run. and the district you run in. But, you know, I like the person who goes to the district and serves first and then decides on a political career. A little nervous about district jumpers. You know, people say, well, this one looks good. I think I'll go there. And the best candidate is the person who's got a good record of loving a neighbor like you'd like to be loved yourself.
You both mentioned something, you both lost a race.
Yes.
Two, that's right, yeah.
One.
Are there any lessons from, are there any lessons that you learned from losing that you think helped you moving forward, and after you did win? Could you maybe share some thoughts from losing and maybe how that changed helped you?
Well, one lesson is life doesn't end. In my case, our first year of marriage was on the campaign trail in West Texas. And so, you know, taking my new wife to the Mule Shoe Parade, Mule Shoe, Texas, really wasn't her first choice. Anyway, you know, it was in many ways a blessing because it's amazing what you can learn in defeat. When John McCain beat me in the New Hampshire primary, it was the best thing that happened to me in the presidential race. For two reasons. One, it reinvigorated my desire to win, but also it was really important to be able to show people that, you know, the boy could get knocked down and get off the mat. And, you know, and so internal grit is necessary to be successful, and one way you develop it, sadly, is through losing.
On the balance, I think losing is way overrated. Winning is better. But what you want to do if you run is to know that if you don't win, it's because the voters made an informed decision and really disagreed with you, or thought someone else would do better. Because you all should have things that you won't do, things you believe in that you can't give up. And, you know, you can make them as palatable or as pleasing to people as you can. You should do that. And make your unpopular opinions as digestible or understandable as you can. You should do that. But when you run, and then but if you get beat, then you have to say, is there something I could have done that would have averted this? And in my case, the answer to the first loss, I think, was no, and the answer to the second loss, I think, was yes. And so when I ran the second time, after I'd gotten beat, I said that my mother never had to whip me twice for the same thing when I was a boy growing up, and I explained why I thought I lost and what I intended to do about it. But I think that I think the greatest thing is what George says. When you get your brains beat out, you have to look in the mirror and decide who the heck you are.
Thank you.
And whether you're going to let that define the rest of your life. Even if you never run for anything again, you shouldn't give anybody else power over the breath you take every day. Your life still has meaning, it has inherent worth. And you just have to take it and just imagine that you're a rough piece of stone and somebody's chiseling on you, and you're going to make sure a pretty statue comes out.
So our final question this afternoon is from one of our scholars, Shaquan Lewis. Shaquan.
Sir.
Hi, I'm Shaquan Lewis. I'm from Dallas, Texas. Oak Cliff, to be exact.
There you go.
And I'm a lawyer at Pizza Hut. My personal leadership project is with the South Dallas Fair Park Opportunity Fund, and we invest City of Dallas resources in entities that are doing human and economic development work in an overlooked community. The idea is just focus on what that place can be, not what it's always been. President Bush and President Clinton, in the spirit of our program's emphasis on reflection, as you look back on your 8 years in office and maybe even some of the things you might have done differently, what offer, if guidance, do you have for us in terms of what we can do to improve our politics and maybe lessen our political climate going forward, lessen the partisanship in particular?
Well, Presidential Leadership Scholars is a good first step. I mean, you know, look, when you really think about it, there's a lot of really smart, capable people who could have taken the easier path and said, I don't think I'm interested. But you took a little bit of a gamble, and you didn't know many people in the program, and you showed up. And, you know, it's a pretty good sign that people were willing to take. It's not a huge gamble, but it could have been a waste of time, or it could have been something that didn't interest you. But you chose to seek new horizons. And you know, I'm asked all the time about, am I optimistic about America? And thanks to, in large part, to interfacing with PLS scholars, the answer is damn right I am. And because we get to see the future leaders. So I forgot your question, but it's a damn good one, though.
I think a big part of life, when you make a mistake or something goes wrong, or you lose a race or whatever, is deciding what you can fix and what you got to let go. And there's some things that if you don't let go in life, you'll never be free. You can't go on to the next thing. So my advice is, if you want to run for office, you want to help somebody else, really spend a lot of time thinking about it. I always tell people that say, I want to run for office, what should I do? I said, first of all, never run for a job you don't want.
Why'd you run for Congress?
Because at the time I did want it.
Oh, okay.
But I was glad I didn't get it in the end, but I did want it for very specific reasons. And I went from 0 to 48.5%. I got beat, and the guy I ran against had 85% approval when I started running. But I knew why I wanted the job. That will keep you going. Secondly, I think it's important, again, this requires an incredible amount of discipline. I'm very grateful for the last 18 years I've had. And the whole different life, I had to learn new skills too to do all the stuff we've done. But one of the great gifts is that both he and his father, and eventually even his beloved mother, forgave me and decided, I couldn't be all bad or I wouldn't have been successful, and maybe there's something we could do together, something we could become together, somebody else we could help together. I am so grateful for that. There's some things you just got to let go. And even today, I still have trouble with it. And I'm just like he was. I'm much more upset about the things I think that were done wrong to Hillary than anything that's ever done to me. I figured, what the heck? It's a contact sport. If you don't want to get the heck beat out of you, it's like a pro football player complaining when he gets blocked or tackled. But we're about to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's birth. None of us in this room have ever had as tough a deal as he had. And he learned what he had to let go. It made him free. It made him great. It not only made him president, it made him a great president when he got elected president. So I think my own advice is work on what kind of person you are all the time, what you believe, what you feel, and your ability to communicate it. The rest of it will take care of itself.
Well, join me in thanking both President Clinton and President Bush for such a wonderful conversation.
program where we will have our graduation. So we will be back momentarily. Thank you.
Please direct your attention to the monitors for a video testimonial from Presidential Leadership Scholars alum Will McNulty.
Team Rubicon is an idea that was founded in the immediate aftermath of the Haiti earthquake in January 2010. At the time, I had left the Marine Corps. I was wondering what the next chapter of my life was going to be, and the Haiti earthquake happened. Along with some firefighters and other Marines, led a medical team into Port-au-Prince, and we ended up being one of the very first response teams on the ground. When I first started PLS, Team Rubicon was just Team Rubicon USA. We hadn't launched Team Rubicon Global yet. It was actually during one of the modules in April of 2015 when the Nepal earthquake happened in Kathmandu. And that's when we launched Team Rubicon Global and subsequently Team Rubicon United Kingdom. I used the PLS experience to advance Team Rubicon by, I think, primarily the module strategic partnerships. Again, building those strong strategic partnerships with these country organizations around the world, recruiting their military veterans into our operation and deploying them into natural disasters. Effectively creating this global network that's all united under a common brand with a common mission.
I have seen a man with real passion and drive begin to understand how to manage and, dare I say, manipulate in order to get the right outcome for the collective good.
The veterans who serve with Team Rubicon regain a sense of purpose, a new community or peer-to-peer support system, a new sense of identity. Those are things that they lose after taking off the military uniform, and we give them back through continued service, this time through disaster response.
He is much improved in the way that he manages board members. He's already very articulate, but he has become much more astute in his interventions in order to achieve the right outcomes.
PLS inspired me to think about my own potential as a leader because too often in our jobs, we're siloed with individuals who think the same way that we do, are working towards the same objective, and PLS brings a diverse group of individuals who are going to challenge your perceptions, the ways you think about the world, and I think that's one of the true benefits of the program.
What PLS allowed me to do was turn on the lights and have a map for how you lead change. Specifically, I have a much better sense for how to create a strategic plan. I have a much better sense for how to lead a team. I have a much better sense for how to think about my values and setting my visions and goals. I have a much better sense about how to persuade people. The frameworks and learning, the classroom learning at PLS, was game-changing for me. So I'm currently the Chief Impact Officer for Participant Media, which is an entertainment company. We make film, television, and digital content. And at the core of each one of our pieces of content is a social message. And as Chief Impact Officer, my job is to create the strategy and execute campaigns around that content so that when people see our stories and are moved by them, they have an opportunity to take action and be leaders and change themselves. It was a great privilege to be in the presence of 59 other people who are dedicating their lives as servant leaders. I am grateful to the universe that upon completion of the PLS experience, I've landed in a job where I am working on some of the most important social issues of our time, and that given the content that we're creating that drives change and the PLS Rolodex, that in this job, When I combine the two, together with my team and with my PLS colleagues, we are in the position to make incredible change around the world and across the country. And so I hope I can live up to that challenge, but I feel ready and grateful.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President and CEO of the LBJ Foundation, Mark Updegrove.
It is my great honor to introduce each member of the graduating class of the Presidential Leadership Scholars 2018. Starting with Emily Baker, founding and managing partner of Portman Square Group, Boise, Idaho. Antoinette DeBoer Balta, co-founder and president, Veterans Legal Institute, Orange, California. Matthew Banks, CEO, Davis Regional Medical Center, Mooresville, North Carolina. Buddy Bengal, managing partner, Bengal Hospitality, New Bern, North Carolina. John Benyon, Chief Deputy Attorney General, Montana Department of Justice, Clancy, Montana. Tanisha Boyer Robinson, President and CEO, Reliance Methods, Dallas, Texas. Julissa Carrello, President, Tejas Premier Building Contractor Incorporated, San Antonio, Texas. Gwyn Chu, Professor of Surgery, LSU Health Sciences Center, Shreveport, Louisiana. John Coleman, Managing Director and COO, Invesco Private Markets, Atlanta, Georgia. Colin Cox, Partner, Yetter Coleman LLP, Houston, Texas. Ben DeBont, Vice President and CISO, IBM Cloud, Seattle, Washington. James Ferguson, Founder and CEO, Warrior Reunion Foundation, Cockeysville, Maryland. Joseph Forney, CEO, Gold Chain LLC, Boise, Idaho. Connor French, General Counsel, Funding Circle USA Incorporated, San Francisco, California. Pritesh Gandhi, Associate CMO, People's Community Clinic, Austin, Texas. Robert Gore, Attending Physician, SUNY Downstate Medical Center and Kings County Hospital, Brooklyn, New York. Christina Grant, Chief of Charter Schools and Innovation, the School District of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Dion Gums, Founder and CEO, Gen Equity, Plymouth, Minnesota. Lisa Hallett, CEO, Wear Blue, Run to Remember, DuPont, Washington. Alana Odums-Aber, Executive Director, American Civil Liberties Union of Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana. Tara Henderson, Associate Professor of Pediatrics, University of Chicago, Chicago, Illinois. Jeffrey Hom, Policy Advisor, Philadelphia Department of Public Health, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Lauren Hughes, Deputy Secretary for Health Innovation, Pennsylvania Department of Health, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Risha Irvin, Assistant Professor of Division of Infectious Diseases, Johns Hopkins Science of Medicine, Elkridge, Maryland. Lenore Jarvis, Pediatric Emergency Medicine Attending, Children's National Health System, Washington, D.C. Sunny Jha, Assistant Professor of Anesthesiology, University of Southern California, Tustin, California. Lily Kahn, Senior Director of Infectious Diseases and Informatics, National Association of County and City, Silver Springs, Maryland. Ben Coleman, Associate, McKinsey & Company, Dallas, Texas. Lauren Leader Shiva, CEO, All In Together Campaign, Harrison, New York. Shaquan Lewis, Senior Director of Legal, Pizza Hut LLC, Dallas, Texas. Stephen Yanis, Attorney and Associate, Lowenstein Sandler LLP, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Jared Lyon, President and CEO, Student Veterans of America, Washington, D.C. Victoria McCausland, Assistant Teaching Professor in Communication, Arts and Sciences, Pennsylvania State University, Virginia Beach, Virginia. And Roth Nayekter Macy, Managing Director, National Center for Child Abuse, Statistics and Policy, Washington, D.C. Corey Meltzer, Principal, CFM Mediation, Hollywood, Florida. Samuel Newman, Executive Director, Brighter Bites, Houston, Texas. Christopher Palumbo, CEO, Dispensary of Hope, Nashville, Tennessee. Eric Pickering, President, Tracers Information Specialists, San Elismo, California. Benjamin Porritt, President, Outside Eyes, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Mary Redding, External Affairs, Commission on Military, National, and Public Service, Alexandria, Virginia. Lauren Robinson, Deputy Secretary for Health, Promotion, and Disease Prevention, Pennsylvania Department of Health, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Miguel Romano, President of Foundations Seton Ascension Health, Austin, Texas. Ruben Salinas, President and CEO, Parsigan Diagnostics Incorporated, Andover, Massachusetts. Megan Sims, Founder, Garden Craft, Waco, Texas. Shamina Singh, Executive Vice President of Sustainability MasterCard, New York, New York. Davis Smith, CEO, Cotopaxi, Sandy, Utah. Jamie Statter, Vice President of Strategic Relations, U.S. Green Building Council, Washington, D.C. Aaron Stevens, Deputy Comptroller for Intergovernmental and Community Affairs, Office of the State Comptroller, Brooklyn, New York. Yaniv Suissa, Managing General Partner, Sine Wave Ventures, Washington, D.C. Hunter Taylor, Clinical Assistant Professor at the University of Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi. Tina Tran, Head of Educational VP Content, Oculus at Facebook, San Francisco, California. Esene Uzo Okukuro, Chief, Small Spacecraft Mission Design Division, NASA Ames Research Center, Palo Alto, California. Tony Vargas, State Senator, Nebraska Legislature, Omaha, Nebraska. Asha Varghese, Director of Global Health GE, Chicago, Illinois. Michael Weber, Professor of Mechanical Engineering, the University of Texas at Austin, Austin, Texas. Isabel Gonzalez Whitaker, founder, Sarah J. Gonzalez Memorial Park, Memphis, Tennessee. J. Eric Wilson, CEO, Noble Impact, Little Rock, Arkansas. Kelly Wolf, Director of Public Affairs and Advocacy, Children's Minnesota, Roseville, Minnesota. And our final graduate, Brian Wolf, Executive Vice President of Policy and External Affairs, EEI, Washington, D.C. Congratulations, Presidential Leadership Scholars, Class of 2018.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alexis Herman.
Hello. Well, let me first of all begin by thanking President Clinton, President Bush, and Laura Bush. We thank you today for your vision for this Presidential Leadership Scholars Initiative. But more than thanking you today for your vision, we thank you for your active and committed engagement to this program. You've given of your time, you've given of your experiences, and you've helped to make the collective difference in the lives of these scholars. My congratulations to the class of 2018. You know, we thank you for giving of your time and talent, for hanging in there for these past 5 months. We know that you're going to make a difference, as you already have, as you've already demonstrated. You've heard time and time again through these past 5 months, and you've heard these two presidents say over and over again just today, that this initiative was founded on the principle of the need for collaborative leadership. And we need that collaborative leadership today, now more than ever. I hope that this experience has helped to deepen your own understanding of what it means now to communicate a clearer vision, what it means to leverage strategic partnerships, what it means to be a force and use your influence for the common good, and to be willing to do the hard work that is so necessary to work across those divides that do exist today. Even when we disagree, it is your willingness to step into that gap that is going to make the difference. Byron has so eloquently shared with you today that you have formed bonds and friendships that will last a lifetime. And you now join a distinguished body of 240 other scholars. I hope that you will take the lessons, the learnings, the experiences that you've learned from one another, that you'll take advantage of this broader network that is now available to you. Let it be a part of your ride and your guide for the future. Again, my heartfelt congratulations to each of you. And may God continue to bless you and the work that you do. Let's give our scholars another big round of applause.